I didn't say anything when my daughter walked into that diner and started filming me. I should have. She stood there, phone up, smiling, like she'd just found something funny to post. "Mom, look at you," she said loud enough for half the room to hear. "This is what you are now." I kept wiping the table. Table 7, same one I'd cleaned 3 times already that morning, because I needed something to do with my hands. A couple at the counter stopped eating. Someone behind me whispered. No one stepped in. Then a man moved. Not fast, not dramatic, just enough. He stepped between me and my daughter and blocked her camera. "Turn it off," he said. She laughed. He didn't. And that was the first time in months someone didn't look at her like she was in charge. That moment didn't feel big at the time. It just felt different, like something had shifted even if I couldn't explain how. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 62 years old. And 6 months before that morning, I wasn't working in a diner. I owned a small company near the Long Beach harbor. Nothing flashy. We rented out equipment forklifts, loading gear basic things the big companies didn't want to deal with. It paid the bills. It kept me and my husband steady for almost 30 years. Then he died. And everything that came after didn't fall apart all at once. It happened in small steps, the kind you don't notice until you're already somewhere you never meant to be. My daughter Rachel said she would help. She and her husband Derek handled paperwork contracts, bank calls, things I didn't have the patience for while I was barely sleeping and trying to get through the day without breaking down in the middle of it. They didn't push. That's what made it easy to trust them. They just showed up with documents and said, "Sign here." It's temporary. Power of attorney, they called it, just so they could help manage things. I didn't read everything, I'll be honest about that. I signed because I thought I knew them. A few weeks later, I couldn't access one of my accounts. Rachel said the bank was updating systems. A month later, I couldn't access any of them. Derek said it was a security issue. By the time I started asking real questions, I wasn't asking them in the right place anymore. Because technically, nothing belonged to me. Not the accounts, not the business, not even the office I'd been walking into for decades. Everything had been transferred, legally. Or at least it looked that way. I remember sitting in my car outside the office one morning, looking at the door like it belonged to someone else. Because it did. Rachel told me I was overthinking it. Derek told me I had signed everything myself, and the worst part wasn't that they said it. It was that they were right. I had signed. I just didn't understand what I was signing at the time. I thought about getting a lawyer. Then I checked how much that would cost. That conversation ended pretty quickly, so I did what people do when they run out of options. I downsized. I found a room to rent. Small, clean, no view. I started living off Social Security, and whatever I had left that wasn't already tied up. And I took the first job that didn't ask too many questions. Seaside Grill Diner, morning shifts, refills, wiping tables, smiling when people didn't bother smiling back. It wasn't hard work. It was just different from the life I had. I met him on my 3rd week. He came in at the same time every day, late morning, sat near the window, ordered tea, toast, nothing else. He looked like someone who didn't want to take up space. Thin, quiet, hands that shook just enough to notice if you were paying attention. Most people weren't. I was. Because when you've lost enough, you start noticing other people who look like they have too. The first time I spoke to him, it wasn't anything special. "Refill?" I asked. He nodded. Didn't say thank you, didn't say anything. But his eyes were sharp, clear, not the kind of eyes you expect from someone who looks like they might need help walking across the street. A few days later, I brought my own lunch. Half a sandwich. Nothing fancy. I didn't have time to eat it all before my break ended, so I split it. Half for me, half for him. He looked surprised. Not grateful at first. Just surprised. Like it had been a while since anyone offered him something without a reason. "Are you sure?" he asked. I nodded. "It's just a sandwich," I said. He took it like it mattered more than that. And after that, he started talking a little more. Not about anything important. Just small things. Weather. The harbor. How busy the diner got around noon. But every now and then, he would say something that didn't quite match the way he looked. Like he understood things he shouldn't. or noticed details most people missed. I didn't think much of it at first. I just thought he was another regular trying to get through the day. Until the day my daughter walked in and reminded me exactly who I used to be, and who I wasn't supposed to be anymore. I kept seeing my signature on papers I didn't remember reading. Not one or two, dozens. The copies the attorney showed me later all looked clean, organized, proper, no crossed out lines, no rushed handwriting. Everything about them said this had been done carefully. That was the part that stayed with me. It wasn't messy, it wasn't impulsive, it was planned. After my husband passed, the house got quiet in a way I wasn't prepared for. Not peaceful quiet, the kind where you start noticing every sound you used to ignore. The refrigerator, the clock, your own breathing. Sleep didn't come easy. My doctor prescribed something to help, said it was temporary, just enough to get me through the adjustment. Rachel picked up the medication for me. She started coming by more often after that, bringing groceries, handling calls, sitting at the kitchen table with a folder in front of her like she had somewhere else to be. Just sign this, Mom. It lets me talk to the bank for you. That was the first one. Power of attorney. I remember asking, do I need a lawyer for this? She smiled. Not fake, just confident. It's standard. This just makes things easier. Easier sounded good at the time. The next few weeks blurred together. More documents, different reasons. Updating vendor agreements, fixing a tax classification, making sure nothing gets frozen while everything's in transition. Derek explained most of it. He always had an answer ready, like he'd rehearsed it. And I didn't push back, not because I trusted him more than I trusted myself, but because I was tired. Grief does that. It doesn't just make you sad, it makes you slow. Like everything takes twice the effort it used to. Reading a full page felt like work, so I signed. The first real sign something was wrong didn't come from them. It came from the bank. I tried to log in one morning and got locked out. Called the number on the back of my card. Sat through the menu options. Waited on hold. When I finally reached someone, they told me my access had been updated. Authorized user changes. I asked who authorized it. They said it was done under a valid power of attorney. That was the first time I felt something shift. Not panic, not yet, just a small pause. Rachel said it was temporary. Mom, the system flagged your account because of the estate stuff. This just keeps everything running smoothly, Derek added. It's actually safer this way, safer for who I didn't ask. I let it go. A few weeks later, I stopped getting statements. Then I stopped getting calls from vendors. Then one of our longtime clients called me directly. Hey, I tried reaching you at the office. They said you're no longer handling contracts. I thought he had the wrong number. I didn't. I drove down to the office that afternoon. Same parking spot, same front door. But the nameplate inside had changed. Not completely, just enough. Brooks Harbor Equipment, LLC was still there. My name wasn't. Rachel met me in the hallway like she'd been expecting me. You should have called, she said. I didn't think I needed an appointment for my own office. She didn't argue. She just said, we restructured things. It's cleaner this way. We. That word did more damage than anything else she said. Derek joined us a minute later, holding a tablet. He pulled up documents, showed me percentages, ownership breakdowns, explained it like it was already done. Because it was. You signed all of this, he said. And he wasn't wrong. Every page had my name on it. Every signature looked like mine. I remember standing there trying to match the timeline in my head, trying to figure out when I had agreed to give up everything I spent my life building. I couldn't find the moment, because there wasn't just one. There were dozens, small ones, quiet ones, easy ones. When I asked about the accounts, Rachel didn't hesitate. They're under the company now. It's more efficient. And me. She looked at me like I'd asked something unnecessary. You're taken care of. That's when I understood something I should have seen earlier. I hadn't been pushed out. I had been reorganized. I sat in my car for a long time after that meeting. Didn't turn the engine on, just looked at the building. People walked in and out like it was a normal day. For them, it was. For me, it was the first day I realized I didn't have anything left to walk back into. I started noticing him because he never rushed anything. Most people who came into the diner had somewhere else to be. You could see it in the way they checked their phones, tapped their fingers, asked for the check before they were done eating. He didn't do any of that. He sat in the same booth near the window every day, around 11:45. Ordered tea, toast, took small bites like he wasn't in a hurry to finish anything. At first, I thought he was just another regular trying to stretch a meal. Then I realized he was paying attention to things most people ignored. One morning I dropped off his tea and he said without looking up, "You're short-staffed today." I glanced around. We were, but I hadn't said anything. "You can tell I asked." He nodded slightly. "Table turnover's slower. People are waiting longer to order. Your manager's covering 2 stations." He said it like he was reading numbers off a screen, not guessing. Another day, he asked me what time the cargo ships usually came in. Not, "Do ships come in here?" He asked for timing. I told him late afternoon, depending on the schedule. He nodded like that confirmed something. "Busy days follow those," he said. He was right. I didn't ask how he knew. He never introduced himself properly. Not at first. I only got his name because he paid with a card once instead of cash. Thomas Caldwell. The name didn't mean anything to me then. It was just a name on a receipt. We didn't talk much, not in long conversations, just short exchanges between refills and clearing plates. But he listened. Not in that polite way people do when they're waiting for their turn to speak. He actually listened. One afternoon, I sat down for a quick break, finally eating something before my shift picked back up. He looked at the sandwich in my hand, then at me. "You don't eat enough," he said. I almost laughed. "I eat when I can." He didn't smile. "That's not the same thing." I slid half the sandwich across the table without thinking. He hesitated, not like he didn't want it, like he wasn't used to being offered anything. "You don't have to," he said. "It's just a sandwich," I told him. He took it, slowly, carefully, like it mattered more than I intended it to. After that, something changed. Not in a big way. He didn't suddenly start asking personal questions or offering advice. But his attention shifted, more focused, more deliberate. A few days later, I noticed something else. A man sitting 2 tables away, not eating, just drinking coffee, watching the room. He didn't look at me directly, but every time Thomas came in, he was already there. I asked my coworker if she knew him. She shrugged. "Says he's waiting for someone. He never met anyone. He just sat there, finished his coffee, left." That same afternoon, Thomas asked me a question that didn't feel casual. "Do you still have access to your company records?" I paused. "No." He nodded like he expected that answer. "And your bank statements?" "Not anymore." He took a sip of his tea. Didn't react, didn't offer sympathy, just processed it. "You signed everything he asked." I let out a breath. Apparently. He didn't say I should have known better. Didn't say anything about trust or mistakes. He just said, "That's usually how it happens." I wiped down the table, slowly thinking about that. Usually I asked. He looked up at me then. For the first time, there was something different in his expression. Not curiosity, recognition. "People don't lose everything all at once," he said. "They lose it in pieces they don't realize they're giving away." I stood there a second longer than I should have. Because that was exactly what it felt like. Not like something had been taken, like I had handed it over 1 page at a time. Later that shift, I saw him speaking quietly with the man who had been sitting nearby. Not long. Just a few words. The other man nodded. Left first. Thomas stayed, finished his tea like nothing had happened. When I brought the check, I asked, "Do you know him?" Thomas looked at the door the man had just walked through, then back at me. "Yes," he said. "That's why he's here." He didn't explain further, and for some reason, I didn't push. But as I walked back to the counter, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever I thought this was just a quiet man, a cheap meal, a shared sandwich, wasn't as simple as it looked. I stopped pretending I didn't notice things. Not all at once, just small adjustments. I paid attention to when he came in, who else was already there, where people sat, how long they stayed. It wasn't paranoia, it was awareness. The kind you develop after realizing you missed too many obvious signs the first time. Thomas didn't change his routine. Same booth, same order, same quiet presence. But I started seeing what I hadn't before. He didn't just look around. He tracked patterns. Which tables turned over faster? Which customers paid cash? Which ones lingered? And every now and then, his eyes would settle on me, not in a way that made me uncomfortable, but in a way that made me feel like he was checking something against a list only he could see. One morning, I walked past his table and saw a folder tucked halfway under his arm. Not open, not displayed, just there. It wasn't a diner menu, too thick, not a newspaper either, paper-clipped, structured. I didn't stop to ask, but I slowed down just enough to notice the edge of a page, numbers, columns. That same day, the man who usually sat a few tables away came in earlier than usual. He didn't order right away, just sat, watching. "Your friend's early today," I said when I brought Thomas his tea. He didn't look back. "He's not my friend," he said. The way he said it wasn't defensive, it was precise. "Then why is he here?" I asked. Thomas stirred his tea slowly. "To make sure I'm not wrong." I stood there for a second. About what, he didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at me, not at my uniform, not at the tray in my hand. "At me. About you," he said. I let out a short laugh. "You don't know me." He didn't smile. "I know enough." That should have bothered me more than it did. But it didn't, because somewhere in the back of my mind I knew what he meant. He didn't mean who I used to be. He meant what had happened. Later that shift, I was refilling coffee. When he asked another question, "How often do you hear from your daughter?" I shrugged. "Depends. On what? On whether she needs something." He nodded like that fit a pattern he'd seen before. "Does she contact you about the business?" he asked. "No," I said. "That's not mine anymore." He looked down at the table. Not surprised, not confused, just confirming. "You still think it was a misunderstanding?" he asked. I wiped a ring of coffee off the counter. "I think I signed things I shouldn't have." "That's not what I asked." I paused, because that was the question I'd been avoiding. "Does it matter what I think?" I said. "It matters if you plan to do something about it." I let out a breath. "I don't have the money to do anything about it." "That's not the same as not having a case," he said. That was the first time he said something that felt like more than an observation. It felt like direction. Not a push, just a door I hadn't considered opening. Across the room, the man near the door stood up, paid for his coffee, and left. No rush, no signal, just gone. Thomas watched him leave for a second, then turned back to his tea. "Most people wait too long," he said quietly. "For what? To realize they're allowed to say no." I picked up his empty plate. I said no, I told him. They just didn't listen. He looked at me again. Steady, measured. "Then you didn't say it in a way that mattered." That stayed with me longer than anything else he'd said. Not because it was harsh, because it sounded true. When I got off my shift that day, I sat in my car for a while before starting the engine. Not thinking about Rachel, not even about the business, just about that sentence. Saying no wasn't the same as being heard. And for the first time, I started wondering if there was a way to change that, without raising my voice, without making a scene, without turning into someone I didn't recognize. Inside the diner, I could still see him through the window, sitting exactly where he always sat, like nothing had changed. But something had, and I could feel it even if I didn't know yet what it was leading to. I didn't expect to see her again that soon. It was just past noon. The rush had started. Orders stacking up, coffee running low, everyone moving a little faster than they wanted to. I was carrying a tray back from table 4 when the bell over the door rang. I didn't have to look up. I knew it was her. Rachel walked in like she owned the place. Not in a loud way, not yelling, just comfortable, like she had nothing to answer for. She scanned the room, found me, and smiled. Not the kind of smile you give someone you care about. The kind you give when you've already decided how a situation ends. "Wow," she said, stepping closer. "You really stayed here." A couple people nearby glanced over. I set the tray down. "Can I get you something?" I asked. I kept my voice even. Professional. That seemed to bother her more than if I'd snapped. "No," she said. "I just wanted to see how you were doing." Her eyes moved over my uniform. My shoes. My hands. Looks like you figured it out. I didn't respond. I reached for the rag on the counter and turned back to the table I'd been cleaning. That's when she took her phone out. At first, I thought she was checking a message. Then I saw the camera angle. Pointed at me. Mom, say something, she said, still smiling. People should see how you're doing. A man at the counter shifted in his seat. Someone behind her let out a quiet hey, but no one stepped in. I kept wiping the table. Not because it needed it, because I didn't know what else to do. Come on, Rachel said. You don't want to talk? She took a step closer, adjusted the phone. Framed me better. Mom, look at you, she said louder now. This is what happens when you don't listen. That one landed. Not because of what she said, because of who heard it. And then something moved. Thomas stood up. Not fast, just steady. He stepped between me and Rachel, positioning himself directly in front of her phone, blocking the shot. Turn it off, he said. Rachel blinked, then laughed. Excuse me. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't step closer. Didn't need to. If you continue recording her without consent, he said, and post it, it can be used as evidence of harassment. Rachel tilted her head. You're kidding, right? No, he said. That was it. No speech, no explanation, just no. For a second, nothing happened. The room felt paused, like everyone was waiting to see who would move first. Rachel didn't lower the phone, but she didn't raise it either. You don't even know what you're talking about, she said. Thomas didn't look at her. He looked at the phone, then back at her. I know enough, he said. That was when the man from the other table stood up. The one who never seemed to be eating. He walked over calmly. Didn't touch Rachel. Didn't look aggressive. Just positioned himself close enough to be part of the moment. Ma'am, he said, I'm a licensed investigator. He reached into his jacket and showed ID. You might want to reconsider what you're doing. That changed it, not dramatically. No gasps, no shouting, just a shift. Rachel's smile dropped a fraction, not gone, just adjusted. Are you serious? She said, glancing between them. No one answered. She looked back at me. For a second, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not guilt, not regret, uncertainty. Slowly, she lowered the phone. Didn't turn it off right away, just lowered it. Then she tapped the screen, black. No apology, no explanation. She just slipped it into her bag. You're making a mistake, she said. I didn't respond. She looked at Thomas, then at the investigator, then back at me. And for the first time since she walked in, she didn't look like she was in control anymore. She turned and walked out. Same door, same pace, but not the same energy she came in with. The bell rang again as it closed behind her. And just like that, the room started moving again. People went back to their meals. Conversations picked up. Like nothing had happened. I stood there still holding the rag in my hand, not shaking, not frozen, just aware. Thomas stepped back, returned to his seat, picked up his tea like he hadn't just changed something I didn't have the words for yet. I walked over slowly. Thank you, I said. He didn't look up right away, just took a sip, set the cup down. That wasn't about me, he said. I frowned. Then what was it about? He met my eyes, calm, certain. It was about making sure she understands. He said this doesn't end the way she thinks it does. I kept replaying what he said while I refilled coffee like nothing had happened. This doesn't end the way she thinks it does. He said it like it wasn't a guess, like he'd already seen how it ends. I finished my shift, clocked out, and found him still sitting at the same table. Same cup, same posture. Like time hadn't moved for him the way it had for me. I walked over. You said that like you knew something I told him. He didn't deny it. I know enough to ask the right questions, he said. That's not the same as having answers. No, he said. But it's how you get them. He didn't push anything across the table. No dramatic reveal, no folder full of documents, just a name. Call this firm, he said, writing it down on a napkin. Ask for Laura Chen. I looked at it. You already talked to them. I gave them a reason to listen. I didn't call right away. I went home, sat on the edge of the bed, looked at the napkin for a long time. Then I picked up the phone. Laura didn't sound surprised. That should have been my first clue. She asked for my name, confirmed a few details, and then said, We've reviewed some preliminary information. We'll need to go through everything with you in person. Reviewed. Not we can take a look. Reviewed. 2 days later, I sat across from her in a small office that didn't look like anything special. No big windows, no expensive furniture, just files, a computer, and someone who spoke in complete sentences. She didn't start with sympathy. She started with structure. "Let's walk through the timeline," she said. We went step by step. When I signed the first document, when access changed, when accounts shifted, she wrote everything down, didn't interrupt, didn't react, just built the picture. Then she turned her screen toward me. "This is what we found so far," she said. It wasn't dramatic. No red flags blinking, just data, company filings, ownership changes. A second entity listed as a consulting firm, Pacific Ridge Consulting, LLC. "Does that name mean anything to you?" she asked. I shook my head. "It should," she said. "It's been receiving transfers from your original business account." She clicked another tab. "Bank records, dates, amounts, regular, structured. Those weren't authorized by you directly," she said. "They told me everything was being managed through the company. It was," she said, "just not your company anymore." I sat back, tried to follow the pattern. It wasn't random. It was clean, too clean. She zoomed in on a document. Signature at the bottom, mine. "This is where it gets more serious," she said. She highlighted a section. "The signature block here doesn't match the original formatting of the document." I leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means your signature was likely lifted and applied digitally," she said. "Not forged by hand, replicated." I stared at it. It looked exactly like my signature, because it was, just not placed there by me. "That's enough to prove something," I asked. "It's enough to ask for more," she said. "And once we ask, we can compel records." She clicked through a few more files. Patterns, transfers, connections. It all pointed in the same direction. "This isn't a misunderstanding," she said. I didn't answer, because there was nothing left to misunderstand. "It's structured financial exploitation," she continued, "using authority granted under vulnerable circumstances." I let that sit for a second. Not the legal wording, the meaning behind it. "They knew what they were doing," I said. "Yes," no hesitation, no softening, just yes. I looked back at the screen, at the numbers, at the timeline, at my name showing up where it shouldn't have been. "What happens now?" I asked. She closed the file, folded her hands on the desk. "That depends on what you want," she said. I almost laughed, because for the first time in months, that question didn't feel theoretical. It felt real. "I want my life back," I said. She nodded. "That's a starting point," she said. Then she added, calm and direct, "Because the way this is structured, we don't start with a fight." I looked at her. "Then what do we start with?" She met my eyes. "We start with evidence." I didn't sleep much the night before the meeting, not because I was nervous, because for the first time in months I knew exactly what was going to happen. Not how it would end, not every detail, but I knew I wasn't walking in blind anymore. The office looked the same. Same glass door, same front desk, same hallway I had walked through for years without thinking about it. But this time, I didn't hesitate at the entrance. I walked in like I belonged there. Because legally, I still had a claim to it. That was the difference. Rachel was already inside when I got there. So was her lawyer. Derek wasn't. That told me more than anything else could have. Rachel stood up when she saw me. Not surprised, just guarded. "What is this?" she asked. I didn't answer. I took my seat. Laura sat beside me, calm, organized, like this was just another case. "Let's keep this straightforward," Laura said. She placed a folder on the table and slid it across. Not aggressively, just enough. Rachel didn't touch it right away. Her lawyer did. Opened it, started flipping through. No one spoke for a few seconds. Just paper moving, pages turning. Then her lawyer slowed down. Not dramatically, just more carefully. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Laura didn't look up. "From publicly available filings, bank, trace analysis, and documentation provided by my client." He kept reading. "This outlines a pattern of transfers," Laura continued, "from Brooks Harbor Equipment, LLC, to Pacific Ridge Consulting, LLC. Rachel finally reached for the folder. "Derek handles that," she said. Laura nodded. "And you signed off on the authority that allowed it." Rachel looked at me, like I was supposed to correct something. I didn't. Her lawyer leaned back slightly. "This is incomplete," he said. "You don't have full access to financial records." Laura folded her hands. We have enough to establish probable cause, she said. If this proceeds, we will request full disclosure through formal channels. That landed, not loud, but heavy. Rachel shifted in her seat. This is ridiculous, she said. Everything was done legally. Laura didn't argue. She just turned to a specific page. Your signature appears here, she said. Rachel nodded. Exactly. And here Laura continued flipping to another page. And here, Rachel frowned. The formatting of these documents is inconsistent with original filings, Laura said. Indicating digital alteration. Rachel's lawyer looked again, slower this time. That's not proof of intent, he said. No, Laura agreed. But combined with the meet the transfer pattern, it's enough to support a claim of financial exploitation under California law. Rachel exhaled, hard. This is insane, she said. I was helping her. No one responded. Because intent doesn't matter as much as impact. Not in this situation. Rachel picked up her phone. Called Derek. It went to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. That was the moment something changed. Not in the room, in her. What happens if I don't agree to this? She asked. Laura answered without hesitation. We file, she said. Silence. No raised voices. No threats. Just a clear path. Rachel looked at her lawyer. He didn't answer right away. Then he said carefully, if this moves forward, it will be expensive. And there is a non-zero risk of criminal exposure depending on what discovery reveals. Rachel stared at the table, at the documents, at the signatures. I didn't know, she said. It wasn't convincing, not even to her. I spoke for the first time. I'm not asking for anything extra, I said. She looked up. I just want what was mine, I added. No anger, no shaking, just clarity. Rachel closed the folder. Didn't push it away, didn't argue. I need time, she said. Laura nodded. 3 days, she said. After that, we proceed. We stood up. No handshake, no resolution. Just a timeline. When I walked out of that office, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel relieved. I felt something else. For the first time since I lost everything, I felt like I had control over what happened next. I didn't rush home after that meeting. I sat in my car for a while, hands on the wheel, just feeling the quiet. Not the kind of quiet I had after my husband passed. That was heavy. This was different. This felt steady. For months, everything in my life had been happening to me. That was the first day it didn't. 3 days later, Rachel signed. Not because she wanted to, because she understood what would happen if she didn't. The business came back. The accounts were restored. The ownership was corrected. But I didn't go back to the way things were. That part mattered more than anything else. I moved everything into a trust, not out of fear, out of clarity, because once you see how something can be taken, you stop pretending it can't happen again. Rachel didn't apologize right away. That would have been easier. Instead, she avoided me. Then she showed up once. Then left early, then came back again. It wasn't a straight line. Change rarely is. Derek never came back. From what I heard, he decided distance was safer than explanation. That told me everything I needed to know about how much of this had really been his idea. As for Thomas, he didn't ask for anything, didn't remind me what he had done. He just came by the harbor one morning with coffee and asked if I was opening on time. Like it was any other day. We never turned what happened into something bigger than it needed to be. No speeches, no dramatic closure. Just small, practical decisions. The kind that actually change your life. Looking back now, I don't think this was about winning. And it definitely wasn't about revenge the way people usually imagine it. There was no shouting, no public takedown, no moment where everything exploded. What happened here fits into those family revenge stories, and revenge stories people watch, but the part that matters most is quieter than that. It was about understanding exactly what was done to me, and deciding I wasn't going to let it continue. Family drama doesn't always look like arguments. Sometimes it looks like paperwork. Sometimes it looks like someone smiling while they move things out from under you. And sometimes the hardest part is accepting that the people you trust can also be the ones who cross the line. If there's anything worth taking from this, it's simple. Read what you sign. Ask questions even when it feels uncomfortable. And don't confuse silence with peace. Because once something is put in writing, it becomes real, whether you meant it to or not. If you're into real family revenge stories, grounded revenge stories and true family drama that actually happens in everyday life, there's more like this on the channel. Stories that don't rely on chaos but on truth timing. And the moment someone finally decides to stop letting things slide. If that's the kind of story you want to hear more of, you know what to do.